I think we're going through a very chaotic moment in which things are fracturing and splitting and dividing up in a way that has happened before in history. I don't think it's ever quite happened so quickly. This present moment and how we will be judged in history. And it's very curious that you ask that, because in a chapter I'm just writing now in my Sublime book about our relationship to history in the past, I go through that and I try and explain to the reader that what you think about right now about the year 2024 and how people will see it in 2124 will be very different. And how people see it in 2224 will be even more different. I tell you, look back at 100 years ago and how you see the world in 1924. You see the kind of funny fashions, the music, the women dancing wildly, all these other things. It's not how people experienced it back then. So history has a very strange way of altering one's perspective. So as someone who spends too much of his time reading history, I think about this a lot. And I think we're going through a very chaotic moment in which things are fracturing and splitting and dividing up in a way that has happened before in history. And I've seen these cycles before. I don't think it's ever quite happened so quickly in such an accelerated pace, a lot of it having to do with technology. What I mean is, it used to be that there were these kind of grand myths that would unite people who lived in a particular moment, what is called the zeitgeist. Those grand myths could be America, Americans' exceptionalism. It could be about our democracy. It could be about our great history, if we're talking about America. Or it could be, if you're a Christian, blah, 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 blah. These were things that united a group that you believed in, that kind of anchored you in this sort of reality, and it made you follow certain beliefs and obey or accept certain things. All of that is splitting apart. Every form of authority now is under question. People are going into their little niche corners, their little smaller beliefs, and they're joining these little groups, etc., these little groupuscules, grouplets, etc. It's all fracturing. The great myths that united this country are dissolving before our very eyes. And I talk about it because I think about, if I were to create a politician now who could somehow overcome all of that, like John F. Kennedy did when he won his election, or FDR, or Abraham Lincoln, you would have to create a new myth for America to unite us all. And so this dissolving nature in which we all have our small little pockets of beliefs, and we don't like authority, we're very cynical about it. I think people will look back on that and go, wow, that was really powerful, right? They'll look back on the pandemic and the effect of it. The other thing that I think that marks our time is very high levels of anxiety and fear. And that in particular is cyclical, because I can recognize in history periods very much like that stamp people's very deeply in their psyche, like the 1930s and the Depression, etc. Very high levels of fear and anxiety, particularly among young people, and rightly so, because they've gone through a lot of things that have destabilized them, kind of shaken up their faith in institutions, etc. So very high levels of anxiety and fear and cynicism, okay? Now, this has got to change, because we're human beings and we don't like this. We don't like living with all this doubt, this fear. We want to believe in something. We want to be excited. We want to feel like there's a future ahead of us. So a generation will be emerging. I don't know when. I think it may be the youngest generation now. I don't know, because I don't have children that age. I don't have any children, but that are emerging now, where they're going to find this state of affairs so depressing. They're going to react against it like people in the past have reacted against it. And they're going to create new movements, new myths, new things for people to join together on and believe in, new things that are going to excite them, that are going to overcome all this fear and anxiety that we have. That said, I am not a seer. I am not Nostradamus. I could be 100% wrong, because in 100 years, so many other things could have happened, where compared to now, people will be even more fearful and more cynical and more divided, and they'll look on us and they'll go, wow, that was a great time. I don't know. But you asked me the question, so I did the best that I could.